Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Driving Perilously. This is Linda Ronstadt with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra. I'm assuming. She made 3 albums with him, so I think that's from the first one, but who knows? You Took Advantage of Me by Linda Ronstadt. Could be with somebody else, right? So today is the beginning of April. We're a couple days into April, and St. Patrick's Day is over, Easter is over, and we're on our way to summer, it feels like. Here in sunny South Florida, it is so hot and humid like it usually is in June, July, and August. But of course, this is April, and in between April and June, we have May. So we have 6 months worth of summer coming up, it seems. So what's going on? What's going on is, for a couple days, I didn't have a show in the works. Felt like a fish out of water. But I just got a movie, and it was supposed to start filming today, but it's going to start filming on Sunday. So in the life of an actor, hey diddly dee, an actor's life for me. You never know when you're going to have a role. When you have a role lined up for the future, you have to realize that you can't audition for things because you have a role coming up. And if you don't have a role coming up for the future, you don't know if you'll ever have another role. So it's a give and take right there, isn't it? But of course, the wonderful thing about being an actor is that it is an installment, or it's not permanent. So if you hate your boss, guess what? They're only going to be your boss for a little bit longer. And if you're one of those people who always hates whatever boss you happen to have, then maybe this is a good job for you. So, little story time. I grew up in Palm Beach County, moved here when I was very small. But there's certain parts of the county where I'm very familiar, and certain parts where you don't come to very often, right? You know, certain neighborhoods I frequent a lot, and then certain places I just know of vaguely. So when I was little, there was this area, this neighborhood of an adjoining town. I won't use particular names, but there's all these little towns that all run together, and it's all one greater West Palm Beach area. But there's all these little towns that run together, and you're not quite sure where the boundaries are because they all, touch, and it's just one part of a larger area. But so there's this one place that I only knew because my grandparents had a burial plot there set aside for them. So once they passed on, they already had their burial plot picked out and paid for, and that sure does make things easier. Then a couple years later, my aunt buys the house across the street. So suddenly I have a much greater connection to that area of town. Then 15 years later, my mom buys a house almost directly across the street from where my aunt was, almost directly next to the cemetery. So suddenly there's 3 places within walking distance of each other that were not important to me that suddenly are very important to me. My mother's future burial site next to my grandparents, my aunt's house, and my mom's house. It comes time for my mom to use her prepaid burial site, and I'm the one who makes some final arrangements, but boy was it helpful that she had already paid for it and already decided things. Boy, everybody should prepay. Everybody should pre-plan, because it's just not the time to make decisions. And gonna have to make a few, but it's better to make a few than 100. And if they can make them before they go, that's what should happen. So we are in the process of deciding what her gravestone's going to look like. And, I like making creative decisions, choosing things, so I didn't mind it. But, if she had particular desires, she should have done it. She would have done it. She let me handle that, which is fine. So the cemetery is taking forever. And every once in a while I call them and ask for an update of when the stone will be here. And they take a message and call somebody else, and that person calls me back and they say they don't know. And sometimes they actually walk out into the cemetery to see if the stone is there. And I'm thinking, you don't have this written down anywhere? You don't have, because every time I'm there, they look in their computer and they type things in their computer. And they can't type in the computer and see by looking at the computer whether or not the stone has been installed. But no, they actually go out to the plot and look to see if it's there. I'm like, when it comes in, they're not going to tell me, and they're not going to know themselves. They have to go check. So I just checked, and it's there. And it doesn't look as wonderfully poetic as I expected it to look. I expected to look at it and burst into tears about how beautiful it is. But instead, I think, well, they did do what I asked them to do, and it's now complete. And I'm like, did I make the right choices of lettering and graphics? I think I did, but I do not have a big sense of creative fulfillment. But hey, at least after a year and a half or something like that, after I paid for something, it actually has appeared. And that's my story about that part of town, which was not important to me at all, and then became a place I go every single day. I think people in a small town are probably more used to living right across from the cemetery, or right next to their sister, or right across from where they work. But here in this area where everybody's from somewhere else, and people come here just to retire, or people come back after their childhood is over, or come back to take care of their parents, or, people are always moving in and out. The population is growing by leaps and bounds. The roads are always, crowded and improved, and construction, and more houses and more houses. In this situation, it's just odd that those